mentioned that the university president?
At that time was Grady Gamage, but I arrived in September, 1st of September here, and he died in December, as I recall.
What was that like when he died?
Well, it was for the community. I met him only once, so it didn't affect me terribly personally. But for the community, it was pretty devastating at the time because he was a greatly respected and much loved leader here.
How did things change after that?
Well, I think the biggest change was that by fall of '60, and that's pretty fast in today's world, by the way. You don't get new presidents that quickly today. But by fall of '60, we had a new president, and it was G. Homer Durham. And it turns out, in my personal view, that one of the best things that ever happened to ASU was hiring G. Homer Durham, who was a great catalyst, a great leader, a charismatic leader, a dreamer, a futurist, and along with that, just an absolutely wonderful man of unquestioned integrity. One of my most admired people.
Do you have any special stories that you remember about him?
Well, there are a lot of stories, I guess, one could refer to in the general history. He was a man who, of many parts, he was what I'd call a Renaissance man. He was a great academician. He had high standards. But along with that, believe it or not, he's the one who's responsible for the Fiesta Bowl. He was the one who dreamed that idea up and fostered it. One of the things I do remember about him was in 1967, when I was chairman of the accounting department. Glenn Overman went off on a 6-month sabbatical. So I had also to be acting dean during his absence. So here I am, chairman of the department and acting dean, and G. Homer calls over and says, "Come on over, Bill, I want to talk to you." And I said, "Yeah, okay." He said, "You know, we've just lost our controller here in the university. I want you to take on the job of controller." Well, it struck me that 2 jobs was plenty, 3 was one too many. So I had to say to G. Homer, "Really, you understand I have these obligations with Glenn and so on." So of course that went by the board. But it was wonderful to be thought of highly enough to be asked.